This is my new favorite SCP, SCP-002, the living room. This one gives me the absolute willies. It's an object class. Safe. Special containment procedures. Currently, there are no containment procedures for SCP-002. It has not been recovered by the SCP Foundation yet. It's just sitting there in the world, and we all get to wonder who goes into it next. The only special instructions given in the recovered documents were in case of contact, which means if somebody goes into the house, specifically the living room, do not engage unless absolutely necessary. And even then, do not attempt to restrain or contain it. Just let it leave the house. Why? We don't know because the rest of the file is classified. But that seems like some pretty vague instructions for someone who may or may not be coming back from the dead. I just love how they use the word recovered here. It's like they did in Want to use the word found, because they knew that would convey the desperation and dread that this object brings up. Like someone did not willingly go to the home at 1738 Deer Park Road and come back with these documents. They had to have snuck them out, likely when the house was empty. Because if someone was home and saw what was going on inside this house, they might not have made it out alive, or they would have come out crazy. Or maybe both, because this thing messed up 3 people's minds so bad that we have reports from 3 separate people saying the same thing. But before I tell you about those 3 people, let me tell you about the house. The house is located in Cleveland, Ohio, and was constructed in 1926. In the year 1951, the local police department received an anonymous letter informing them about a series of murders taking place at this house. In the letter, the author claimed to have witnessed 3 people being killed in this house over the course of 2 weeks and described the victims as the parents of the family and their son. Yeah, so that's nice. This isn't a haunted house. This is a murder house. After getting this letter, the police did investigate but came up with nothing. There wasn't any signs of a break-in, and no one seemed to have noticed anything, so the police ended up doing nothing. Literally days after the cops left the house, the fire department showed up because the house was fully engulfed in flames. The entire home was destroyed, and the bodies of a man, a woman, and a boy were found in the rubble. Yeah, the fire must have been hot because the bodies were burnt beyond recognition. However, they were able to determine the cause of death for each victim. The father had been shot twice, the mother once, and the son 3 times. So that's where our story begins. In 1952, 2 paranormal investigators visited the now non-existent home. These 2 were not the first ones to visit. This home had already gained notoriety throughout the paranormal circles as a hotspot for activity. And the reason these 2 decided to check it out was because they got a tip from another investigator, who told them that he experienced something inexplicable during his own investigation. He said that, when he was examining the area, he heard screams coming from inside the house. And despite the fact that he searched the entire home and found nothing, he could still hear things moving around inside. And then when he finally left, he turned around and saw the door open on its own. These 2 decided to investigate further. And while one stayed outside to keep watch, the other went inside to look around. While the person was inside the house, the second person outside the house saw the lights turn on and off several times. Then he started hearing screams and the sound of heavy footsteps. To the person's credit, they did stick it out for a whole hour, listening to the sounds and watching the lights flicker. But eventually, they did decide to call it quits, and they left the home together. Nothing happened to them, and they lived their lives. Then, in 1963, a 3rd team of paranormal investigators headed to the house. Now, this time, the pair decided to stay together the entire time they were in the house, and they brought cameras and recording equipment to capture whatever was going on. They also wanted to test the theory that the house was somehow attracting paranormal activity because of its previous events. What they believed was that since the murders and the subsequent cover-up, the house became a nexus for supernatural forces. And ever since then, paranormal activity has increased tenfold. While they were investigating, the pair felt an extremely cold breeze and the temperature suddenly dropped by almost 10 degrees. They tried to take pictures, but every time they took a photo, the camera malfunctioned and the film was ruined. They also tried to record audio, but every time they set up a microphone, it was met with interference and pops until the cord was pulled right out of their hands. They didn't see or hear anything else, but they did find a single book lying on a table. When they opened it, it was filled with nonsense writing, but they did notice that there were no pages on the first half of the book. No paper or ink whatsoever. The pages were just missing. And then on their way out of the house, they noticed that they were unable to exit through the front door. Even though they knew that the door was open, they couldn't see anything but pitch black darkness, and they couldn't bring themselves to step through. So instead, they went out the window and watched as the door slowly opened on its own, revealing the interior of the house. It looked like a bomb had gone off. Walls were torn apart, windows were shattered, and the furniture was overturned and destroyed. Then the door slammed shut and everything went back to normal. That's when they realized that it wasn't the house that was drawing in the paranormal activity. It was whatever the hell was happening in the house that was causing the activity. When they told others about their investigation, they were laughed out of every single paranormal society. They were called delusional and were even told that they probably broke the fourth wall and were hallucinating due to stress. That was until they were contacted by the SCP Foundation and taken into the woodshed. They asked them to come back to the house and help locate the source of the anomaly. However, when the researchers arrived at the home, it was completely abandoned. Only that, but the entire neighborhood had changed. All the homes around it were gone, replaced by an apartment complex. On top of that, the road itself had been renamed, and the house was no longer at that address. There was no sign of it anywhere. One of the investigators claimed to have seen a man in the window of the house in the year 1974. But he was unable to escape the anomalous effects of the house long enough to get a good look at him. The man was never seen again. The files end here. The only other document associated with the file are the notes of one of the investigators that shows that they were continuing to search for the house. When they got a call from someone who asked them to come over to their home, apparently they were also interested in the paranormal and wanted help investigating their own home. When the researchers arrived at the home, they were immediately greeted with an incredible stench, the smell of decay and death. At the front door, they found a man and a woman who appeared to be husband and wife. They invited the researchers in and explained that their young daughter had disappeared 6 months ago, and they believe she died in the house. During the investigation, the researchers came across a living room. As soon as they entered the room, their instruments began to pick up energy readings that were off the charts. Their cameras flickered, and the audio equipment picked up voices. However, they couldn't make out what was being said. The researchers investigated further and found that the walls were completely bare, and there was no furniture. The room was empty, yet they could feel a strong presence here. The researchers advised the couple to abandon the home and call the authorities, but they refused. They wanted to find their daughter and bring her home. So the researchers, seeing that they weren't going to convince the couple to leave, set up cameras to monitor the home overnight. They didn't see anything out of the ordinary during the night, except for one of the cameras panning on its own to the living room where they saw the faint outline of a young girl standing in front of the couch. The next morning, they found the couple dead in the living room. The cause of death was unknown, but the authorities did find strange symbols carved into the floorboards. The researchers were never able to figure out what the symbols meant. After finding the couple, the researchers were unable to return to the house because it was completely surrounded by barbed wire. Then, when they went to the authorities to tell them about the house, the officers laughed them out of the station. They were told that there was no record of a missing girl and no evidence that anyone had even lived in the house. This house seems to swallow people and spit out their souls. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like. And if you want to see more videos about SCPs, there's a playlist available. Thank you for watching.